Okay, so it has been about almost 3 weeks since the alpha release, and it feels like a lot longer than that to me. Feel like we've made a lot of progress and things, so that's great. Um, I think the main update from the past week is we uh, finalized the session management RFC, and we posted that on GitHub. So that so far has been well received. We haven't had too many comments on it. What we have had has been positive. And then just like people on Twitter and so forth are really excited for auth being built into Blitz. So it's going to be so good to get this built. So one of my top things to do next is open an issue on implementing the middleware, the HTTP middleware, just kind of to finalize the spec of that and so somebody can build that. So that's like number one. And then Rashava's working on the like scoping out, or I guess like designing the architecture of the session management package. He's working on that right now, and it'll probably be a few weeks until that's like something usable. So that'll be really, really, really great. And then also I'm going to be working on the default authentication identity provider check. So username and password self-hosted in the app. I'm going to be working on that code in parallel with Rashad. And I think we'll probably package that as an installer because not all apps are going to want it, and maybe you want Auth0 or something, and so you would install that. So it should be a good use case for that. So that's all for me to start with. So maybe we can go ahead and talk about the website. Robert, you can give us an update.
Sure. So there's not a ton to update on, really. I will say that could probably get, I mean, you've seen most of the content that's on the site already, so I think we could have it up before your talk so you can show it, or if people, want to visit, they can.
So like,
yeah,
could it just go live today?
Yes and no. Jason didn't finish the branding PR, so I just figured if he doesn't do that in the next day or two, I'll just pull it down and finish it.
Have you just sent him a message or
I haven't
comment on
pinged him
GitHub and
yet.
asked?
No, I've been meaning to do that.
Okay.
So yeah, I can ping him on it as well.
Okay, so that, and then the other thing that I can think of is updating all of the docs to the latest of what's on GitHub, like the getting started guide and the manifesto. And I think it's probably just copy and paste.
Yeah. Do you think you guys will? I mean, I don't assume you're going to code freeze before the talk. So do you think there'll be any? Like, should we just wait to update the docs like the day before, or what do you think?
The day before going live?
Before your talk or go live?
No, it could, the site can go live anytime.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, all that's
it's
left.
Not if it was the official site, then I'd make a bigger deal about it. But
right, yeah. So all that's left really then is just to merge some branding and merge the announcement banner, and then update the docs to whatever's latest. So.
Okay, yeah. So as soon as that's done, we can just switch it over.
About the docs on the site, so I was thinking about so like there's a PR to auto-generate them from the CLI commands, and we came to the conclusion that like the default CLI descriptions from Oak Cliff aren't really enough. So I was thinking maybe co-locating docs inside of the CLI package. I don't know if that's a good or bad idea, but maybe to have a docs folder inside of the CLI package where we would store the short description for Oak Cliff and a longer description that we could import on the site. So when you change the...
That's a good idea, but except that it's not going to work with translations. Because how we're doing translations is forking the entire website.
Yeah.
My 2 cents on the like how to handle keeping stuff up to date is like the API surface is pretty stable at this point. Like we're adding new features, but it's not like the formal structure, like the server and how Blitz works at its core is not changing. And we're adding new commands, but in terms of the existing stuff, it's not like we're not going to change how Blitz new works materially anytime soon. And so I don't think it's super worth it to, my idea of like having some auto generation was like, it would just be nice to like, even if it just like post to Slack, it's like, hey, someone changed this, we should make sure the docs are updated. And it was more just like a way to automate the process of us knowing we need to update them. But like, I don't think it's
maybe
worth
just
like
open a new issue.
Yeah, but I don't think it's worth like jumping through hoops to automate the generation itself. In that like we probably want that to be human driven anyway, and like have more of a human feel to the docs than just like CLI output.
Yeah,
I agree.
Especially if we do translations too.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. We at some point, maybe once the Dockside is live, we can add an item to the PR checklist for adding documentation or like updating documentation if you change any user-facing features, because that's going to be more than just a CLI. So.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I think like that stuff will be more, and like everyone on our team knows what we're looking for, so I don't think there's any point in like stressing out too much about it. It's up, DJ. I don't think there's any point in stressing out too much about it, and I think it's just kind of worth like, well, if there's shortcomings in the process, we're going to find them, but like there's no shortcomings to know about yet because we don't have a process.
Yeah, and so we have a bot now, so we could utilize that somehow if we need.
Definitely.
Thanks to DJ.
Came on just in time.
What would we use the bot for?
We're talking about keeping documentation in sync with like the code.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah.
Like it would more like cool. It would open an issue or something, be like, or make sure that like, hey, some documentation needs updated for this pull request.
Gotcha. Yeah, that'd be sick.
Yeah, there's probably some like pretty easy diff tool we can use just to pull in the diff and just say like, hey, if it changes files that match any of these glob patterns, post a comment saying like, hey, make sure you update some docs. I think is like a pretty easy enough workflow that our bot should be able to look into.
Yeah.
Sounds like a great like first start. Like, I mean, that's already a really helpful process, right? And obviously we could iterate on it, but sounds like that'll have a big enough impact.
Okay. Justin, do you want to give us an update on Windows support? Like, is it actually working now?
Pretty much, yeah. I just PR'd something that fixed the DB reset command, but it was broken cross-platform, and then there was a little Windows glitch in it as well. But yeah, other than that, everything's working right now, knock on wood.
Okay, good. There's an issue open, I think, still for Windows that we just need to close then. Oh, yeah, wow. And you like early on, we were having an issue with like import pages not found or something. So it seems that resolved itself. And then we just had the server issues.
Yeah, one of those I don't think I was ever able to reproduce. It might still be open, I'm not sure, but
yeah,
all
I think that's the
I
one
could
that we
reproduce
just need to close.
Good. Yep.
Okay, good. So something else that's we are like working on is plain JavaScript support, and we released it, but it was like totally broken. So I unreleased it. It's hidden from the CLI now in the docs. There's an open PR by Jose, I think, for compiling because so we're generating some TypeScript files for the RPC stuff, and then that was breaking the JavaScript build. So there's a PR open to compile that to JavaScript around current build time. So I think that's one of the last things. And then I guess we just need to go through and test everything for sure to make sure everything actually is working. Oh, the other thing that's not working is console. The console is not working with JavaScript because it throws an error on like ES module stuff. So I'm not sure if we have to compile if we're gonna have to compile that code on the fly, like the CJS. I don't know. This is something that I would love if somebody can take a look at. It doesn't have to be you, but if somebody watching, this is something that's pretty big to have for the JavaScript support. Any comments on plain JavaScript?
I can take a look at the console stuff. I'm not too familiar with either the REPL stuff or the server PR, but I can try and dig in at some point this week.
It's up to you. The TypeScript REPL just works because it uses TS Node, and it just works. Everything works.
I wonder if for that we just need to provide it. I wonder if we just need to like turn on JS type checking in the TS config and like update some file path configs and see if it'll just kind of work. Like I wonder if it's more just a config setting that TS Node doesn't know what to do with JS files then.
No, it works. That works. What doesn't work is if you don't have a TS config in your project.
Oh,
if it's if there's no TypeScript in here, and then the TS Node doesn't work, there's not a TS config. But maybe there's some hacky way that we can pass in a config to the REPL.
What's the working directory when the console starts up? Does it run from the .blitz directory, or does it run from the root?
Root.
If we did execute it from the Blitz directory instead, and we changed into there, then we could inside of and just use relative paths inside of there. Then we could just keep a TS config around for our purposes that is hidden from the user.
As long as it wouldn't throw any TypeScript errors that people would be like, what is this?
Right, yeah.
But it seems like surely there's some way to pass in a TS config to the
yeah, I assume there is.
Like programmatically or something. But
yeah, I'll do some investigation this week and see what I can turn up.
Okay.
At least open up an issue or comment on that issue with what I found, and if it's easy enough, we can even throw it to someone as a good first issue or something, depending on how complex the configuration is.
Yeah, there's an issue open for it, so if you do some research and find something, you can add to
I'll
that.
drop something in there. Yeah.
Okay, Adam, do you want to give us an update on what you've been working on? You've been doing a bunch of stuff.
Yeah, I've been bouncing all over the place this week. The installer stuff is coming along well. The PR is up for remote installers, which will support installing from any GitHub URL or from the soon to exist library of Blitz native installers. The only restriction for third-party ones is that they have to be hosted at the root of the repo right now. I didn't know if that was a deal breaker, but it vastly simplifies the module resolution that we have to do, given that we have to kind of like dynamically pick out what files to import. And I don't want to be dealing with like supporting like Yarn workspaces and whatever inside of our installer package. That felt a little bit out of scope for us.
Yeah.
But I think
that should be good for now.
Yeah, but right, at least for V1, until we kind of figure out what people want to do with them, I think it's going to be a really seamless solution. Other things that I want to look into, I was digging through the Gatsby recipes code. They do some interesting things that I think we should model, like their use of React Inc. so that their console is almost like an interactive GUI instead of just like a bunch of text flying by. I think is like a significantly improved user experience compared to what we have right now. But then there's also some weird stuff like their transforms and like file modifications are all like very brute force, and like it's very limited, and I think that's something the meeting on Thursday will kind of be able to bring to them. It's like if
Yeah.
you use Recast and use these nice modification APIs that we've built out, you get a lot more for a lot less. Like their modify the Gatsby config is like 400 lines of TypeScript or something, and our transform file is like 60. And so I think we can there's probably some nice, if nothing else, some nice knowledge sharing that we can do there. And when we kind of bring together this abstract solution, we should be able to build something really cool. So that's installer stuff. And then was hopping back into the generator to try and clean up a lot of the outstanding issues we had there. So context paths for nested files and parent models from page generation, and just trying to kind of round out the generator a little bit so that it's a little bit less of a beginner tool and something that you kind of can use throughout the lifetime of the project.
Cool.
So yeah, that's about it.
Okay, good. I saw these PRs come in. I haven't taken a look yet. I'll take a look and try them out, especially the generator stuff.
Yeah, there's some stuff we're gonna have to figure out around syntax. For example, do we want if you supply a path as the model name, so if you're Blitz generate pages admin/tasks, is admin the context folder, or do we treat that as a parent model, for example? So there's a couple of weird edge cases like that we're gonna have to figure out, and so we might need a different syntax than file paths for parent models or something to help differentiate those. But that's something that we can figure out. Maybe we copy the Ruby conventions there and do colons or something, but we can, or steal something from Prisma maybe, but we can figure that out if you want to comment on the PRs with your thoughts there.
Okay, cool. I might, if I get some time, I might work on the form, adding a default form thing. There's an issue for that.
Yeah, the form components I think would be a cool thing. I think that's also an interesting case for an installer, is being able to install a form component, and then that's a nice interactive bit of all right, what component is this form, or what model is this form for? And then we can auto generate components specific to your model rather than having a template that you have to plug your own stuff into.
Right. Yeah, we need to figure out how to make the generators work with different type of forms, or if we, is that going to be a plugin, or there's quite a bit of complexity there that we need to figure out sometime. Okay. Something else people have been asking about is a default testing infrastructure for new apps, and we absolutely need this. And it could be added now. It just needs somebody to take the time to figure out to basically just set up the sweetest testing setup for an app so that everybody can benefit. And I won't get to it because I've been working on the more off stuff, but this is an open issue for anyone watching or listening that you can, if it sounds fun to work on, it's ready to work on. So it would be setting up Jest and Cypress mainly, and making sure it all works good with TypeScript and everything.
I'd like to work on that. I already set up Cypress, so I'd like to just add Jest to that. And the best thing with this is that we should add that to the generators. So when someone generates a component and a form and everything with that, we should also add tests for that. So it's easier for people to realize what the tests do and write more of their own tests.
Yes, I agree.
Okay, it's a better option than just giving examples on the site.
Yeah, for sure.
There we go. I know that's one of the more painful parts about working with the Ruby generator, is it'll just generate you a sample spec that's just expects true to be true, and then you're on your own for testing, and especially for things like Ruby active record models, where it can be really challenging to mock everything out and test those in a safe way. That if we could provide some examples around here's how to test your database stuff and all that, I think that'd be a really
Yeah,
really
just generate that with the scaffold.
Yeah, exactly. And it's going to use all the same template parameters that we already have in there. So it should be fairly easy to get that up and running.
Yep.
I'm curious, like if we're planning on making it so people can put in like fixtures into Prisma and stuff like that, because I know like Prisma has a testing library that they currently don't support. And like so if you want to do like full integration testing, it might be challenging to get like data in, or if we want to build out scaffolding for that.
So I think most of our tests should actually hit the database, like the end-to-end test flow. And like that's how Rails does it. It just has a separate database for testing that I think it like wipes it out like before and after every test run. Maybe I'm not sure exactly how it does that. So we need to do something similar where, so like currently the store example, it runs in test, but it just uses your regular database. So we need to figure out a nice way to make that use a test database. And we can talk to the Prisma folks about this too. Like if we run into things that's like, we really need something from Prisma for this, at least to make it nice. Like we can work around it for now, but so keep this in mind, whoever's working on this, Fran, that look for opportunities where Prisma could make a really nice experience for having a test database.
Yeah, they have what seemed like a really nice library where it uses like a pool of databases for each test, so that doesn't have to keep reconstructing it. It can run them in parallel. And then it also helps you build fixture data. It's just that like apparently when they came out with Prisma 2, they put it aside because they didn't have time. So like it's kind of a major blocker for using Prisma in like more production workloads, in my opinion. But like if they can get that back, or we can help them or something, that might be something that we can do.
For now,
Yeah,
we could just have a because like with Cypress, you can just execute a shell script or shell command before running the whole test suite. So like before running the whole thing, we could just like do db reset and then run a seed file to set up the fixtures for now, while we wait for the Prisma guys to set it up.
Yeah, that seems reasonable.
I'll message the Prisma folks and ask them about this.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Okay. Anything else to talk about on this testing stuff before we move on? Okay, so Adam, I think you mentioned today in the Slack about pinning dependencies in our mono repo. So the way I understand it, kind of the common practice is to pin dependencies inside applications. So they're always like locked down, but then have ranges in libraries so that you're more likely to reuse packages with other libraries that are installed inside. But I definitely feel the kind of frustration of not having them pinned currently with Yarn, like Yarn.lock changing. And then also yesterday I was like running a new app and it was failing because of some updates. I think like there's a new TypeScript type or something was failing with style JSX. So I guess we can pin it as long as we're okay with the trade-off of like, we might bloat node modules a bit, but what do you think?
I mean, I think like given that we're building a CLI as opposed to like libraries that, I mean, maybe it's like package by package, right? Maybe like the, the actual like Blitz package itself doesn't pin, so that like it can take advantage of that, but our dev packages still pin dependencies. And that'll hopefully at least like limit the bloating and limit the increased install times. But yeah, I definitely like I see both sides to it. It was just a thing I was thinking about as I was watching, like, as Sunday night putting up a bunch of PRs, and every PR has a new yarn.lock change because there's like versions being published Sunday night every couple hours.
Right.
And it's not like a deal breaker one way or another. It's just a thought. I'd been just kind of dumping stream of consciousness stuff in Slack.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it'd be good to do that. And currently, we don't like runtime dependencies. We have like very little. Like it's mainly React query.
Yeah, we really don't have much. Let me take a look at what's in the main Blitz package JSON.
And there's nothing in there. There's only our other Blitz packages.
Yeah, there's a couple
Except for like a CLI stuff, maybe.
Right, there's a couple of like various little like resolver packages, but there's almost nothing. And then yeah, like everything else, our runtime defs are pretty limited as well. It's like, yeah, I don't think there's, we'd maybe have to have a revisit that discussion if we move on the externalizing next, but I don't know that we're going to move on that in the immediate future. And so
if we want to pin everything, somebody can open PR for that, and then we can add a npm rc to the root of the project for I think it's like exact equals true or something.
Yeah, there's a config for it.
Yeah, it's in the template app.
Mm-hmm. Cool. I can write that up. That might be a good first issue for someone too.
Cool. Yep. Okay, I don't think I have anything else. Anyone have anything else to talk about?
I wanted to bring up the model generation issue that's open. I posted about this in Slack too, but I think it would be probably worth it to talk soon about what we actually want out of like generated models, in addition to like obviously like the lines that are going in the Prisma schema, but like if we wanted to generate actual TypeScript files containing utility methods, like an actual class that people can take advantage of, what do we want out of that file? So that we can start designing what we want that to look like, because that'll take a little bit of time to get right.
So I've already thought a lot about this, and like if we add a TypeScript class or something and we go down that route, we're basically creating an ORM, and I've tried that and it's not worth it. But so for now, I think we're only going to generate the Prisma stuff. But once we add authorization and model like input validation, then we're going to have some more like model looking stuff. And I've done a lot of kind of research and experiments on this. So I'll get to that after I get username and password authentication working. But yes, I just need to do some more research on that, and then I can write out my thoughts and stuff.
Yeah, that makes sense. The other thing that I was thinking about, and this is something that I was kind of taking inspiration from, because another project that I work on has implemented this model of like, when you build out data classes, also building out test utilities for them. So their particular implementation is this concept of like operators. So each class gets, for each property in it, gets generated a utility function that's like with ID, with name, whatever. And so you can pipe those functions together. They're immutable. And so if you're in a test and you're trying to write tests for your data models, you can expect that like user model with ID, with name, with session token, whatever, and it like outputs a nice data model that you can use in your testing, and it just for like utility there. And I imagine that would be useful for things like optional fields and generating objects to send up to a database and things like that. I think it might be worth looking into what that kind of a framework might look like. But again, that's like more of a down the road developer experience thing that we probably don't need to dig into at the moment.
Okay. Yeah. Cool. But I think the general kind of philosophy is to put as much all your business logic inside queries and notations. So instead of having a model class with a bunch of logic defined on that, either just separate like business logic functions, or actually inside your queries and notations.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Okay, what else?
I can talk about the CSS solution for the website if we wanted to discuss that.
Sure.
Let's see what the vote is right now. 16 to 10 as far as Tailwind versus like emotion or styled components. I think we should probably just do a mix of both. It's what it sounds like people might be most comfortable with. I don't know. Do any of you? I know some of you have already chimed in, but
I think we should just go with Tailwind
okay.
and
No
and
styled
not
components or anything.
no, not unless we like come across something that we're just like, oh, I wish I had this. But with Tailwind, you should be able to build most stuff, from scratch with very little custom CSS. And for what custom CSS you need, you can just do the global style sheet.
Okay.
My 2 cents here is just like it kind of doesn't matter a little bit. Like we're going to build out like once we do the branding stuff, no one's going to have to touch that stuff ever again, right? Like everything's going to be just editing markdown files. And so like pick something and just do it. I don't think it's worth it to bike shit over, which specific variant of CSS modules or CSS and Js or whatever that we go with. Just like, if people are comfortable with Tailwind and it's going to be easy to get up and running, then just like, let's do it and pick something and get the site up.
Sure. Yeah. I wasn't stressing on it too much.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah, it seems like there are some people in the thread that had some strong feelings, but I think at the end of the day, it's just like, whatever's going to get us from here to live with the branding as quickly as possible. And then like, it's just editing markdown after that.
Cool. Yeah. I'll make a story. I mean, I might do it myself, but I'll make a story to implement Tailwind and just roll with that.
Cool. One nice thing about Tailwind is that there's a huge documentation site for Tailwind. So like the design system is already documented, basically. We just need to be able to customize like the colors and stuff, which I think we can do with Tailwind to match our brand.
Yeah, I think you can just set some CSS variables and it'll do it all for you.
Yeah, I think it has like a little bit of theming, so I don't know.
It has some theme color options built in that you just like give it some hex codes and it applies it all for you. So as long as you stick to using, for your styles, you stick to using the theme identifiers instead of color identifiers, it'll just work automatically. And then it makes updating the brand just like tweaking those hex values.
Nice.
Well, that's the other thing. We need dark mode support, which so I haven't done that with Tailwind, but
that's something that I think Tailwind knows that it's it's like a limitation right now. It's kind of like technically possible, but it doesn't work that well. But as far as I know, there isn't really. They're just. I think Theme UI does it, but I think for the most part, most of the CSS solutions don't really have great, dark mode toggle support, and most of them kind of have you do it custom.
Okay. Then maybe we should do like a quick little proof of concept with Tailwind to see what is it like for dark mode.
It looks like there's some plugins, but yeah.
So I think we should just try that, or and then like possibly. So the backup I think is Theme UI because it uses emotion, so you get that. But you also get the design constraints that Tailwind provides. It's the same kind of thing. It's just with JavaScript props instead of classes.
I forgot this is what the limitation with Tailwind in dark mode is that you can't combine responsiveness in dark mode. You have to custom write your responsive styles for that. That's the limitation that they have. That you end up having to kind of hack together is you end up having to write your own breakpoints.
Okay.
Which like maybe with maybe with media queries and global stuff we can make that work. But that's like that feels like kind of a big limitation to not be able to have native responsive breakpoints.
What are you thinking, Robert?
I mean, I think we could always do theme UI or emotion to start with, and Tailwind would be easy to plug into it because you can use them together. That's one idea. Or the other way around, we just use Tailwind, and then once we run into those complications, maybe we implement emotion or something. It doesn't really matter. I mean, I just want it to be. I want someone who maybe is pretty new at development to like land on Blitz and say, hey, I really like the website. Let me see if I can add a cool component to it. And, you know, they'd be able to style it really, really easily. And that's where kind of like the constraints you're talking about with like theme UI would be really nice. They could just, you know, create an H1 in their component and, you know, maybe pass it brand color primary and they're like done. I don't know. And I just don't know what that looks like in Tailwind because the only thing I know about Tailwind is I watched the dark mode video, like how to implement dark mode, but that was with Vue. So
Okay.
I don't know the popularity breakdown between these, but I've used tachyons. I haven't used Tailwind, but same thing. And I've used emotion and all that stuff. And I think you're going to find probably a fairly even split with people that are comfortable with each of the tech. So I don't know, 6 one way, half dozen the other, you know? I don't know if you're going to find a universal thing.
If I was deciding, I would use Theme UI because we don't have the. It's going to be a lot nicer for theming. We get the design constraints or like the scale constraints for font sizes and spacing and everything. It's pretty easy to use. You set up the custom pragma and then you just add a CSS property to any HTML element and you can set, you know, your style stuff right on there as an object. And they already have MDX like features like built in out of the box, so it's works good with MDX.
that would be like a benefit for the docs, right? Can we tie those two things together? Yeah.
Right. So it would use this. The docs would use the same theme config.
Yeah, that seems pretty crucial to me.
Yeah. Okay. That's my big vote is Theme UI.
For me.
Yeah, it works for me too. I mean, I don't know. I polled the community. Like, I don't know if we should like just make it like I don't know.
Yeah,
how
but
we
like, how many of those people are actually going to be working on the website? So,
true. Yeah, and I asked for more input and only got a couple. So I mean, it's really.
So I don't think people care that big of it. Like Theme UI is like it's Tailwind. So if you love Tailwind, you're going to like Theme UI. It's just you're working with JavaScript objects instead of class names, but it's the same concept. You get the same productivity benefits of Tailwind. It's just a different implementation, like method or whatever.
Yeah, it seems like a good compromise from the two highest voted options. So we'll just go with Theme UI then.
Yeah. And it is using emotion for the record. So emotion is always there if you need to do something custom.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good.
Cool.
Okay, anyone else have something to talk about before the call is over?
Hey, Adam, real quick, did we used to ship or generate, I guess, apps with the 2.x syntax for dependency versions? We never did that, did we? Isn't that just in the template?
It shouldn't ever make it into an actual generated app now.
It will if you have a network failure. So
if the install
during the generation, we go out to npm, fetch the latest versions, and then update the 2.x to be like 2.4.1, whatever the latest is. But if that network call fails, which we retry and stuff, but if it ultimately fails, then you'll be left with 2.x.
Oh, okay. There's an open issue for, looks like someone was in that scenario and they try and upgrade Blitz and it's like, what version? I don't know what you're doing, but
For
maybe
Prisma?
they got in that boat. No, they were trying to upgrade Blitz itself, and it then prompted them, yeah, for the Prisma CLI. But they said it happens with Blitz too after they pick a Prisma version, I think. But sounds like they're in a weird edge case.
So I already made a, I think I did the PR, maybe somebody else did, I forget. But it is fixed the issue with Prisma client because it was using 2.x, which is not recognized by like NPM as a valid version range or setting for Prisma. So I changed that to be explicitly 2.0.0-beta.4, I think. And then that'll be updated to beta.5 or 6 or whatever. So that the Prisma specific issue is fixed but unreleased, I think.
Okay. Yeah, this one looks a little more generalized, I think. Maybe not, but I can't reproduce it, and they're using an older version of Blitz. They're like 090 Canary 1 or something, so I don't know.
I think what I'd really like to do is, so NPM, I know we talked about this like way back when we were first building all this, was that NPM, if you give it a save exact argument, then it will do all of that resolution for you. And it's just Yarn that won't. And so I kind of want to, and then what that would allow us to do is, or sorry, it does the save exact even if you supply a version range in your install command. So if I do, npm I save exact next at 9, it will save exact 9.4.0 in my package.json, whereas Yarn will still install that exact version, but in the package.json, it'll just put 9. Really, I think Yarn should emulate the NPM behavior. So I might just open an issue on Yarn and see what kind of traction we get there. I don't know. Like,
the problem is we're on the old Yarn, and they've moved on to Yarn version 2.
Oh, that's right. We're on 119. That's right. We're on an old version.
And I don't think they're adding new features to Yarn 1. I would be
No,
surprised.
if you're not using Berry, they don't want to hear from you.
They walked that back a little bit because they got so much pushback when they were like, you can't just like release this new architecture without like pull the rug out from under people. So they've walked that back a little bit, and that they're like considering adding bug fixes. It's just whether or not we can convince them this is a bug. But again, yeah, it's also the problem that we're still on 119 because we keep running into that installation bug.
We're going to have to create a new package manager.
That's fine. Let's do it.
Cool.
If no one else has anything, maybe this is not like we could take this offline, but I was just curious on people's thoughts on making like query validation, like more of like a first class object kind of thing in Blitz, because I'm trying to like come up with a good tech stack for some consultancy stuff I'm doing, like a standard stack, and I spent all of last week just looking through different like backends like Express, Happy, Nest, whatever the heck, there's so many of them. Fastest you say a word, it's probably like a node backend, but like and what I came to realize is like it seems like validation is like critically important for writing anything moderately secure. And the only thing I can find that has good support for that is like Nest has some okay stuff and Happy has some good stuff. And for like that reason alone, I'm like, I guess I can't use anything else, because like you can write your own thing, you can get like Joy or whatever it is and like stick it in and like it's fine. But I felt like, if we want to guide people towards the pit of success, it could be nice if that's like innately part of it, especially because what we're essentially doing is opening up database queries to the world. And if you don't validate and you don't restrict input, you're going to kind of open yourself up to a lot of security problems. If anyone can just select into Prisma onto your API. Like our examples, I don't think are very secure. And so we might be leading people down the pit of doom in some ways.
Yeah, 100%. I think we do need to tweak the like default query mutation stuff and to make it more like secure and make it more like what a real app would actually use. And then for input validation, that's definitely something I've thought about from day one. And we'll absolutely will add it. It's just a little bit lower on my priority list now because being able to log in with username and password is number one.
Yeah, for sure.
But I have thought quite a bit about this and kind of have an idea, a plan. So the idea is to define a model validation like config, and then you can use that in the front end. So you could plug it into like a form library. And so you would get the client side validation, and then you can also plug it into your queries or mutations actually to use the same validation there, right? Because like so often you have a form that you want to validate the input on the client side, and then you have an endpoint for that form that you need to validate on the server side. So it makes sense to just reuse the same like validation logic.
They're going to run the same code anyway, right?
Yeah.
And then are there plans to, because I've seen some, I haven't found anything great on this, but there are some libraries out there that are trying to make it so that you can simultaneously define your validation and your TypeScript typing. Like I think there's like a TypeORM plugin for this where like, you know, TypeORM, you use TypeScript decorators to say like, oh, here's my database model. And then of course it also becomes a type. But then you can add more decorators saying like, oh, this has to be an email, this has to be a phone number, etc. And that seems nice because a lot of times it'd be like, here's how I want to validate. And sometimes your validation isn't that specific. It's just like, this needs to be a string. And then in it, like right next to it, you'll say like, this needs to be a string again, but for your TypeScript. So maybe that might be something interesting to look into.
Yeah.
But,
yep.
Anyway,
yeah. So if you come up with like thoughts and stuff about it, or like things like something you would like to see, then definitely share them.
Okay. Awesome. Yeah. I might open an issue if I get a chance to put some thought into it, do some research. I was also curious if we wanted to make use of the new like GitHub discussions. I know like Next uses it for their RFCs now.
We just got access.
Oh, sick. Okay.
So I just need to go in and enable it.
Awesome.
Yep. So we'll see how that works out.
Yeah, that looks pretty dope.
So you can create, so we can have on our like new issue page where you select like a bug request or bug report, feature request. You can do like a question, and then that will go to create a discussion. And then I think currently you can convert issues to discussions, but you currently can't yet convert discussions to issues, but you will be able to.
Okay. Yeah, it seems good for like SEO. Also, when people have questions, instead of like, it's kind of like a little Stack Overflow. It seems like.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that'll be, as long as we like it, I think that can be more like our forum style place. And then like once we get more traffic in Slack, we get more repeat questions and stuff, then we can push people to ask the question there and get discussions. That way it's more permanent.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, you can't search on Google for stuff that's in our Slack.
Yep.
Cool, that sounds great.
Cool. Anyone else? Okay, I think that is all for today. So thank you very much for all of you joining and all of your help on the project, and everyone else that's not on the call that's been helping. Thank you so much. You guys are amazing. You folks are amazing, excuse me. So next week's meeting will be on the time zone that's good for the other side of the world. And then so in 2 weeks, we'll meet at the same time and day. So take care. Have a
Awesome.
good rest
Thanks,
of your
Brandon.
day, evening.
Bye.
Back on Friday, Brandon.
Yeah.
Bye.
Good luck.
See ya.